Cinema to me is something more than stories.
Stories only exist in stories.
Real cinematic imagery is something human in the absence of human beings. It's when the medium transcends its artificialness and conjures a feeling simply from light and shadow. The look of black and white 35mm is cinema. If you take away the stories and leave only the ambiance, could these scenes be from one film?
This breathing space will give us time to think about the movie and perhaps make it better.
Now we can have some time to work on the characters, Dennis. I mean, it's about time.
When my parents used to take baths before bedtime, my father would leave the water for my mother to use after him. After Wim Wenders shot The State of Things and finished that production with extra film, he gave the raw stock to Jim Jarmusch so that he could start Stranger Than Paradise. Sharing the bathwater is the term I use to describe the connection between these two films. Two films that could have once been part of the same film. They are in dialogue together, but without words. The industry term for assorted, partially unused film stock is short ends.
How about the short ends?
That's what we've been using the last 2 days.
A short end is perhaps ideal for the vignette-style coverage that Jarmusch employs in Stranger Than Paradise. He used the short ends to shoot the first 30 minutes of the film, which was a standalone short in its own right. The brief scenes last as long as the script prescribes, followed always by 3 seconds of black. Jarmusch and Wenders met each other through Nicholas Ray, an influential director admired by many younger filmmakers. Ray had acted for Wenders before, and he was Jarmusch's professor at NYU. This is the moment young Jarmusch was captured as an onlooker by a stray camera in Lightning Over Water in 1980. Ray's career in cinema is as long as the ash on his cigarette. When that ash collapses, it's the visual signifier of Ray's ailing health, but as he wanted, it's also cinema. Ray's dying wish was to pass on while making a film. There's a moment in this Nicholas Ray film that shows up later in Stranger Than Paradise. Look how both directors patiently show the progress of a shadow as it moves across the frame. Lightning Over Water and The State of Things are statements about Hollywood, a place that fascinated Wenders. You can create an inverted panorama of the Los Angeles landscape using moments from these two films. Wenders' follow-up to Lightning Over Water was Hammett, his first American film with a big budget, and he was picked to direct by Francis Ford Coppola himself. But Coppola was dissatisfied with Wenders' cut of the film and forced him to reshoot the entire project. People have speculated that Hammett, as it exists today, was actually directed by Coppola, with credit given to Wenders. Wenders narrates in his film Reverse Angle, "I have the feeling that the story and the images don't belong to me. Here, the story and the images belong to the studio, to the producer." What strikes me about this clip is that Wim Wenders is dressed exactly like one of the characters from Stranger Than Paradise. In retrospect, a film can seem so intentional, every artistic choice so deliberate, that you can't imagine it being any other way. But these movies that last for generations are often shaped by whims and circumstance. During an 8-month lull in production of Hammett in San Francisco, Wenders escaped to Portugal, where he helped director Raul Ruiz during the production of one of his films, The Territory. Ruiz returned the favor by lending most of that cast and crew to Wenders so that he could make The State of Things, and vent his frustration with the American film industry. Jarmusch and Wenders' directing style tends to slow time to a deliberate crawl, and somehow in black and white, the shots seem like different windows into the same kitchen. The first 30 minutes of Stranger Than Paradise are a phantom limb of the state of things. Stranger Than Paradise is divided into thirds, with each scene one unbroken master shot. There is no editing, other than the interludes of black. The first act deals with Ava arriving in New York to stay with her distant cousin Willie. This two-person deadpan comedy is largely domestic. The humor springs from the claustrophobic environs of Willie's apartment, a setting where the mismatched pair can trade barbs about what constitutes good music or a good TV dinner. The acting is so low-key, it barely registers as acting at all. One wonders what Jarmusch would look for in a first take, and what would make him want to burn precious short ends to attempt a second one. The shooting style is minimalist, the tone, deadpan. It's a film about how bored hipsters used to be. Today you could almost Photoshop smartphones into each character's hands to fill the gaps in conversation. If movies are life with the boring parts cut out, Jarmusch has given a home to the cutouts. Wenders also embraced the idle moments of life, as if there was something profound about them. On the photography of his film, Jarmusch has said, "Even though these locations each have a very different feeling, we accentuated the sameness through lighting, filtration, and composition of shots." Wenders and Jarmusch took a lesson from Yasujiro Ozu. Their films employ a mostly static camera and invite the viewer to slow down their concept of time to satiate the cinephilic urge. Jarmusch makes us look at average people. Wenders makes us look at filmmakers. These two crisp black and white films share the same visual ingredients. If there were a third film made from both, it would surely look like this. Empty space, palm trees, sunshine that reads gray. The latitude of the monochromatic celluloid itself. The state of things takes a turn for the bizarre when the main character travels to Hollywood to track down his rogue producer. The chaotic relationship between the German director and American producer is clearly inspired by Francis Ford Coppola.
I gave you a job, don't forget that, alright? I don't give a fuck how things worked out. I gave you your first job, alright? I had my choice of 25 directors just sitting around the Chateau Montmartre. 25 directors from Europe.
Because Wenders made the state of things for personal reasons, it includes references to his own life at the time. Wenders' cameraman on Hammett was named Józef Barak. The cameraman played by Sam Fuller in the state of things is named Joe Corby, that last name a kind of anagram of Barak. Friedrich's rental car license plate says Sam Spate. It's another reference to Hammett, which was about the famous mystery writer Dashiell Hammett, who created the private detective character named Sam Spade. Wenders and Jarmusch are both fascinated with the road. The main character in Stranger Than Paradise travels from Hungary to Florida, while the lead in the state of things goes from Portugal to Hollywood. Both films show us the US through a European's eyes, and for both filmmakers, the way the world is perceived is how it is understood. Wenders in particular puts the audience in many different perspectives throughout his film. The state of things has many forms of seeing, through a still camera, a video camera, a primitive computer, through mirrors, and Super 8. Different ways of looking are explored until the final, ambiguous one, where the point of view of the human eye and handheld camera become indistinguishable. Wenders shows us what happens to sincere German filmmakers who do business with large personalities in Hollywood. They get their metaphorical hearts blown out. Wenders writes about Friedrich's death. When he goes to Hollywood, he gets involved in one of those stories he never believed in, but one that actually kills him. Film is a medium that is always borrowing. The further back you reach, the more distant the beginning. Wenders goes on, "I reject stories completely, because for me, they create lies, and nothing but lies. And the biggest lie is that they create a coherence where none exists. I watch and do not see the story. I only see what I want. The grain, the gray, the blacks, the whites. like hearing a song but not listening to the lyrics.